First, what you want to do is preheat the oven. We're going to bake it at a temperature of 425, and we're pretty much going to use that for any type of meat or poultry or vegetable. Now when you're about to cut your onions, or cut anything actually, you want to place some type of towel or cloth on the bottom to prevent the board from sliding. Because if you didn't have the towel, the board would slide up and down. So we'll put our towel down, and we got our board. Now, you want to take as much of the peel off of the onion as you can. So basically the stuff that comes off easily. Okay. Now we'll just cut off the ends. And we'll just cut off the other end. Now if the onion has a bit of dirt on it, just grab a towel and clean off any of the dirt. Now cut it in half. Try to cut it through the root. And now peel the onion. You can peel off just enough to where the first layer is still pretty firm and it's not really flimsy. Because the onion layers on the outside become flimsy as the onion becomes old. Now for something like this, where it's kind of dirty, you just want to cut it off. And there we go, good as new. So by flimsy, this is what I mean. After we peel off this layer right here, this first layer, you see how it's become really like just old and flimsy? We want it to be crisp, like the layer beneath it. So, therefore, just peel off this whole layer. Now the way to cut your onion is you want to tuck your thumb behind your fingers, because when your thumb is on the side like this, like most people do, you're pretty much only focusing on either your thumb or your fingers, and as you cut, one of them usually extends out. And if I were to keep cutting and forget about my thumb, I would basically cut off my thumb, and that is no good. So stick your thumb behind the fingers, and as your fingers travel, let your blade travel with your fingers as well, and therefore you'll never cut your fingers and you'll never cut your thumb. And you want to curve them like this. Now go slowly at first, but basically we just want to cut them down lengthwise like this. And you always want your vegetable or meat to try to be as flat as possible when you cook it or when you cut it. So this would be the wrong way because it's all wobbly and you have a chance to cut yourself. So turn it on its back, and then basically want it to be straight. Now when you cut, you'll just cut like this. And when you cut, you want to cut in a sliding motion. You don't want to go straight down, because when you go straight down and your knife isn't sharp enough, it's harder to go down. But when you move into a sliding motion, the knife should slide through pretty easily. So when we're cutting our onions, this is how we want to cut them. Just like this. Now when we get towards the end, it becomes more wobbly. So after you reach your limit, instead of trying to hold this and cut it, we'll turn it on its side and just repeat the same process. And there you go. Now you just repeat it with the other half. So now after you have the onions in the pan, you just want to break them up and separate them. So just get your hands in and start separating all the onions so that when they cook, they won't be bunched up together and they'll be easier to scoop out. Now that they're mostly separated, give your hands a quick rinse and then we're gonna season them. Now, when you season things, I like to keep one hand to be used for seasoning and then the other hand to be used for mixing. So that's what we're gonna do. Now you also want to add some oil and mix it around. And there you go, the onions are done, and now we move on to the chicken. Now we're basically going to prepare the chicken, and whenever you're working with raw meat or raw fish, you want to have a plastic bag ready to dispose of the containers so that you don't cause any cross-contamination. And it keeps your kitchen sanitary. So basically, you don't have to wash the chicken after you take it out of the package. It's already clean. So you just cut the package open. And whenever you deal with fish or meat, you want to let it rest at room temperature for about 20 to 30 minutes. The reason being, when the meat cools down to room temperature, it'll cook evenly all the way through. If you were to take this straight out of the refrigerator and cook it in the oven, the center most likely wouldn't be cooked. So if you want to straight up take it out of the fridge and cook it, you can take your chicken and just add little cuts through the meat so that the heat will get through it and your chicken will cook evenly. But since this has been sitting out for about 30 minutes, it is close to room temperature and therefore I do not need to make the cuts. So I will just take them out of the package and basically put them in the oven, or not in the oven, in the tray that I am using to store the onions. So we take the package and we put it in the disposal, or the plastic bag meant for disposal. Yes.
Everything you deserve.
Again, I like to keep one hand clean and one hand dirty so that if I ever need to touch anything, I can get it and touch it without contaminating it with the chicken.
Hurry up and wait. People like, can I hit that road? You and your solo, I'm taking photos to post.
Now for the last few pieces, I kind of ran out of room, so I'm just going to find any space I can and try to fit them in. So I'm trying to keep everything in one pan. There we go. Now again, we use one hand for seasoning, and then we use the other for mixing. And you can be pretty generous with the seasoning.
Anytime I take a look at my passport now, I've been getting that money. I ain't trying to hurt you, but
now we just turn them. You don't necessarily need to put oil on this because the chicken fat itself has oil on it, or oil in it, and when you cook it, the fat will reduce down and release some natural oil. And plus, the onions under it already have oil, so you don't need to oil your chicken.
getting started in my life. So I'm turning up. You know I'm turning.
And the great thing about dark meat is that even if you do overcook it, it doesn't really dry out because of the bone. The bone provides a lot of moisture, and it stops the whole meat from going dry. So that's also why I love using dark meat. So now let's add the chicken in the oven, and then we'll set a timer for 30 minutes. And in 30 minutes, both the onion and the chicken will be done. And you basically have your food for a whole week. And it's that simple. Now we start on the rice. So my general rule of thumb is half a cup of rice for one meal. So since we have about 7 to 10 meals, you can cook about 5 cups of rice, probably. But I think 4 will do just fine, especially if you portion them out correctly. But I'm only going to cook about, I think, 3 cups because I have rice left over from the week before.
I'm not sorry, baby. I'm not sorry, baby.
Now you want to wash the rice 2 times. When you wash the rice twice, it gets rid of enough starch and leaves just the perfect amount. So after you fill the water past the amount of rice in the bowl, you just turn it off and swish it around and just get rid of some of the starch. So you repeat this twice. Now to know how much water you should put in the rice before you put it in the rice cooker, you have to basically stick your hand flat on top of the rice and don't push down, just lightly rest it on top, and you want it to come above these knuckles. So basically it'll look like this. So you lightly rest it on top. It's still a little bit below my knuckles, so I'm going to fill it up just a little bit more. And there, that should be good. So 30 minutes is up. Now let's take a look at our chicken. Ooh, yes. Do you hear that? The sizzle is brilliant. Let me take him out. Hold on. So how you check if the chicken is cooked through or not, you just choose one of the thick pieces and then you cut through it. Let's see. This one's thicker. I'll go with this one. As you cook through it, just open it up. And yeah, that is actually cooked through. Now it looks more pink because of the light from the microwave, but trust me, it is actually cooked all the way through. Yeah, if it's not cooked all the way through, just pop it in the oven for about 5 to 10 more minutes. And now we can turn the oven off. And our meal is pretty much done. We just have to plate it now, or prep it. Now the rice is done as well. Let's open that up. Oh, look at that. Perfect. Now we're just going to separate the rice into all these containers. And then we're going to bring it over to the kitchen and then fill it up with chicken. So here I've got 9 meals ready, and I'm just going to portion out 2 drumsticks into each and also scoop out some of the sauce, which is actually naturally chicken broth that came out of the chicken. So all this liquid at the bottom is natural, so it's totally fine to eat. But I'm just going to portion out 2 drumsticks per meal, and why I separated the rice on the side was so that the drumsticks have a nice little area to rest in. So I place them like this so that I'm able to fit them both into the pan. And then I'll just take some of the onions on the bottom, as well as some of the broth. And load it up like this.
How I carry on, it's like that. That's right, it's like that. Not so much a sidetrack, more like a life jacket. The instrumental makes me sentimental, makes me live a little, Lord.
Oh no, look what happened. I have 1 chicken drumstick left and 2 unprepared meals. So I guess when I bought the chicken drumstick, a few of the packs probably had less than 6. So I ended up only getting 15 drumsticks, but that's okay because I've got more drumsticks in the freezer. So I will just cook those probably over the next few days. So I'll just keep these in the fridge. I'll still divide up the onions and the broth between these two. But I mean, no big deal. I'll just eat these first and then use these for later. So I like my meals to be spicy. So I'll usually add either a little bit of sriracha on the side or some of this. This is probably the best condiment known to man. It's called Spicy Chili Crisp and it's by a brand called Lao Gamma. You can pick this up at H Mart and I recommend you to get yourself one of these because it's gonna change your life. Seriously. So I'll just scoop a small teaspoon into every one of these and it would just make everything taste a lot better. So yeah. So now the meals are prepped and ready to go. Yes. Look at all of that. Now our meal prep is done. And to store these, you can put them in the fridge for up to a week. If you don't think you're gonna eat all of them in a week, then put the rest in the freezer and they will keep for about 2 to 3 months. And then just a few days before you're going to take them, or maybe even 1 or 2 days, take them out of the freezer and put them in the fridge and then just let it defrost overnight. And then you can warm them up in the morning and then go to school. So yeah, this is a way to easily and efficiently prep your meals. And look, we only have 1 pan to clean. How great is that? As always, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something and I'll see you in the next one.